Tito invited the new Russian family who moved in down the street to watch Rocky IV. It did not go well.
I must break you.
This is Morning Juice.
Welcome back into the Morning Juice. Tito's out today playing one of his majors. We'll call it that, or whatever the term is that they're doing, that he does out there. So playing the major. Got some great stuff over at Ohio State football.
Awesome stuff.
Got a chance to watch some, enjoy the nice weather. Open practices Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I even went over a little bit on Sunday, Austin, their first full day of contact. That
A little bonus coverage?
Yeah.
All right, practice number 4.
So checking that out. It's the first time I've been to all four, the first 4 in a row. Buckeyes are off today. I believe they'll go check into the hotel tonight, and then they'll have, the big meat of their schedule as they try to get through the grind here of hashing out, Tuesday, I think, through Saturday to try to really improve and make some hay, as the kids say. So
the kids love talking about hay.
They do.
Big scrimmage coming up on Saturday, right?
Is that the scrimmage on Saturday?
I believe that's the one they're pointing towards.
Okay. Well, there we go. Is that open, or is that
That's not going to be open.
Okay.
Don't know how much more we're going to see, actually, to be honest with you, this month, Bob, because they, when there's a quarterback battle and or a major season opener like Texas, it tends to get a little bit tighter over there with the access, and I totally understand it. I'm not mad about it in any way, shape, or form. I get it. You have both Texas to start the season, and you're trying to work through Julian Sayin and Lincoln Kienholz in the quarterback battle, and it doesn't do them many favors to have every throw being evaluated by untrained observers.
Tracking?
Yeah.
I mean, I see people tweeting out best catch of the day. It was a route on air. I'm like, what are we talking about? What's going on here? Look at this. Look at Julian Sayin take the first snap with
that one really
center.
got me. That one really sent me over the edge, Bob, because I was standing there in that field number 2, north end zone. I know right where the quarterbacks are going. The centers come over there, and I was watching to see who got the first snap with Carson Hinsman, because sometimes that is a little bit of a tea leaf that you can read.
Yeah.
But Ohio State is wise to that. So Austin's going to watch this, and he's going to make too big a deal out of it. So Lincoln took the first, I think, 3 or 4 snaps from Carson Hinsman, and then they rotated within the drill, and Julian Sayin took it from Carson Hinsman. But the footage that was released by I don't know who, it's like, oh, look at this. Julian Sayin taking the snaps from Carson Hinsman on day number 1. What a sign. Like, what? Lincoln Kienholz actually did it first. So if you want to put some stock on that, you actually got it wrong.
That's what's amazing. Is like the analysis that's going on right now with some of that stuff. And look at this great pass. And the reality is, Austin, I mean, I think Ryan has kind of outlined this, and it's been a lot of good, been a lot of bad, too. There's been some bad from both guys. Watching the practices, I haven't seen a discernible difference. I mean, you saw the first 3 there.
Yeah.
Cameras were down after like the first 4 periods or so, but
our cameras were.
Yeah, well, I mean, they filmed the practice, but you watched it. I mean, there really didn't appear to be much of a discernible difference between the 2 players as they were playing. I know Ryan would like to be able to see one. He would like, and there's other elements of the grading of, hey, did you miss a read here? Should you have gone there? There's other things that they go into in more detail, but just by casually watching the practice, I would say that it looked fairly even to this point.
Yeah. I don't know if you would agree with this assessment or not, Bob, but I'm trying not to have bias confirmation, because this is what I thought would be the case, and why Ryan Day has talked about this battle going back and forth, being neck and neck, taking this into camp and seeing what happens if one can pull ahead for the job. I feel like as we sit here right now, and they've had 15 spring practices and 4 training camp practices, it feels to me like the floor for Lincoln Kienholz is currently higher than it is with Julian Sayin. And I think that the ceiling, by and large, we all, I think, agree. When we say, well, we think Julian Sayin is going to win this job, it is based on him tapping into his full potential. I think as a passer, most specifically, and with the recruiting profile and pedigree that Julian Sayin brings to that position and all the things that we talk about with quick release and accuracy and processing, I think that the ultimate upside with Julian Sayin is likely higher. But there's a greater variance between his good throws and his bad throws, and his good periods and his bad periods, and good decisions and bad decisions. And I think when we're projecting out what's this going to look like ultimately for Ohio State's, well, Ryan Day is the quarterback developer in college football, one of the best that there is. And he's going to find a way to tap into that to Julian Sayin. And when he does, then Julian Sayin will run away with the job. But that has not happened, at least from my vantage point, yet. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. There's still a long way to go. What's today? August 4th. There's still 26 days until they play Texas.
What do you think the timeline is on trying to get this solidified?
Yeah,
Saturday seems overly optimistic. Maybe would you say next Saturday?
I think
having a feel.
That's the ideal outcome. When the media schedule and when the practice schedule comes out, I tend to look at it, and last year I circled whatever it was. August 16th, it was after the second scrimmage. Ryan Day was going to be available. I don't remember if that was a Monday or Tuesday. I told Bo, he said, when is Ohio State going to name a quarterback? And I said, this specific date, it's going to happen. And I got that one right. But I think it was much more obvious that Will Howard was going to win that job.
Will Howard also had been a multi-year starter at Kansas.
Yeah, but you still wanted to go through that first scrimmage. Yeah. And Bob, you've been through this process as a player. You've been watching these for years and covering them. You're going to make mistakes in the first scrimmage. That's sort of the point. Then can you correct them by the time you go through week 2 and Ohio State and the coaching staff, or whether you're doing that in the NFL? All right, you made these mistakes. Did you correct them or not? Are you making the same mistakes repeatedly? Can we build on that? Can we work on it? That's more important at quarterback than any other position. Now, they're all important, but when your bad decisions can cost your team a possession, can lead to turnovers.
When you're holding the football,
you're holding the program in your hands. So that's, as they say, the kids say that. I think that's what Ohio State wants, is to get through the second scrimmage, and then there's an assumption or a hope, and hope's not a strategy, I'm told by the general, that you're able to go into that next week and start putting in a game plan for Texas, knowing who the starting quarterback is. I don't think I could sit here right now and say, I guarantee you that's going to happen, because that's not really the way these practices have gone.
You know why? Because those players have to play themselves apart.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem, is trying to figure that out of what that's going to look like. And if they keep doing what they're doing, Ryan will probably get very frustrated, but you'd like to see improvement, but you want to see a natural separation. And it's hard to – you can ask guy, like, hey, we're coaching you. I need to see more out of you. And it's not that you want one player to play worse, but there has to be that natural delineation. And I don't think that anybody's seen that yet to this point. So I'm curious to kind of see when that goes. I would say, ideally, Ryan would probably like to have an idea of that by like Monday the 18th, 2 weeks from today.
Yeah.
Like you said, that gives you that whole week of camp, like the final week of preseason before you get into full-on game mode that following week for Texas. But it's going to be interesting to see. Anything else? I mean, we talk a lot about the quarterback battle, and that's something that everybody, is always intrigued about. There was a lot of news about the Eddrick Houston injury on Thursday. Friday, they're like, well, it's not as serious. Saturday, you kind of saw him,
he wanted to practice on Saturday. He was trying to get into drills.
So I think that there's an element of him, he's going to be okay. And it wouldn't surprise me if he's back practicing early this week at a fairly full go tick as well.
Watching Eddrick Houston go down on Thursday, and I'm standing.
What did that feel like? I had already left. I didn't stay for that end.
It was like the oxygen had been sucked out of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. And if you watch Ryan Day's press conference afterwards, like, that was a little bit out of character for him, because he did not know at that point the severity. Yeah. Everyone in there was sort of holding their breath, waiting to see what's going to happen.
Bated breath.
Bated breath. Term. Yeah, because, and I don't know, I wasn't trying to overreact to it, Bob, but I'm like, well, if you lose a wide receiver, okay, well, there's 6 more that are going to step up. If you lose someone at safety, well, you got a couple other guys that are pushing in there. Like every other position on the roster, like you may be able to withstand that.
Hell,
And
even at quarterback, you like not that you were trying to, but
you don't want to. But even then, you may have had like more security there. And we spent the last 7 months. Did Ohio State need to be more active in the transfer portal? Were there options out there?
How many options were actually
There weren't,
out there?
and that's a separate conversation. But we were talking about the defensive tackle depth. And it's like this is the spot where the Buckeyes are quote unquote weakest, where they need more help.
Vulnerable.
That's right. They have an Achilles heel that could be addressed, or maybe they should have addressed it. Can they get Jason Moore or Tywan Malone or Jarquez Carter or Eric Mensah to step up and fill that void? You had Will Smith Jr. really making a push to help with Caden McDonald there. So you felt a little bit better. I actually thought, losing Eddrick Houston for any length of time would be pretty devastating given his upside. But the fact that it's just likely going to be a short-term thing, Bob, and then you get a look at – I thought Eric Mensah, he's not someone that I talked about at all in the offseason conversation. Well, it's going to be Tywan Malone or Jason Moore. One of those guys has to do it. Eric Mensah put in some really good work from what I saw in those 3 practices, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I think the silver lining to this injury is not just that Eddrick Houston is going to be back, but that the Buckeyes are, in the short term, going to get a chance to cultivate and develop some of that depth at defensive tackle, which is not unlike the situation they faced on the offensive line a year ago, where he said, 1 or 2 injuries and this team might really be in trouble. And that turned out to not be the case, and it goes back to the work that they got in August, where it's like, Austin Saraveld's going to go get this rep that wasn't expected. He's playing at left tackle on this day, or Luke Montgomery is being pushed into the lineup ahead of time. That stuff really paid off as the season went along. Maybe that will be the case at defensive tackle as well.
It is. It's nice when you have injuries and you get a chance to look at guys, and they may show you a little something more that you would not probably have discovered given the scarcity of reps that you can have. And they've been running the 2-field stuff. I think they're done with that now.
Yeah.
To try to get guys out there and to get looks at everybody and to make sure everybody has an ample opportunity to display and peddle their wares, if you will, for the coaching staff and the rest of their team. But yeah, Will Smith Jr., I feel like he's got to be a guy that steps up and plays. Malone, like these guys got to step up. There's got to be someone. And Mensah is a player that I don't think many people looked at, because usually young guys on the line are someone that you're not really leaning into, first-year players. But I think he could potentially be that guy. He did look good, but they are very thin at defensive tackle, and they need to find some depth and help develop it, because that is their one kind of Achilles heel. And like you said, not that you would ever want to lose J.J. Smith, but even with him,
I didn't want to say it out loud into a microphone.
No, we're good. Listen,
could be anybody at wide receiver.
Could be anyone. But you have probably 5 or 6 guys. It's not how good you are, it's how good the guy is behind you. And that's really, what is that difference? What's that delta look like when you come out and they go in? And at all other positions, they feel pretty good. Any other positions that you've been kind of looking at? I know they're trying to develop some depth at linebacker.
Yeah.
You've got 3 guys that are playing pretty well with Sonny, Arvell, and Peyton. And then after that, you've got a lot of guys who haven't played a lot of football at all. So they've got to get some guys ready. And whether that's, Riley or Stover or whoever that may be, they've got to kind of figure that out.
Well, it's pretty bonkers is the word I would use to describe it. What you have athletically at linebacker, Bob, we're not that far removed from a lot of hand-wringing and a decade of not a lot of all Big Ten style play at linebacker. And I thought Pete Warner was really good.
Nondescript.
Yeah, there was good leadership from Tuff Borland. We saw, Jerome Baker go on to have success at the NFL level, Baron Browning, but
Barron didn't really he had great success after here, not as much
after. Same with Baker. It's the same deal. A lot of potential, and it didn't really translate to the legacy that you, Schlegs, AJ, James Laurinaitis built as players. This is the premier. Marcus Freeman. The legend Marcus Freeman as well. Shame on me for leaving him out, amongst others. But that's a reminder of how many guys were going through and setting the standard at linebacker in the early 2000s. And then it dropped off, and I think we can all look at that and admit that was the case for 5-6 years. Cody Simon And Sonny Styles last year really bringing that back. And James Laurinaitis, it's not just the development of the guys on hand. It has been the recruiting uptick as well. You mentioned Riley Pettijohn, Bob. TJ Alford, the same thing. You look at the size, speed, strength, athletic profile of these guys. It has been undoubtedly upgraded, and you partner that with what seems to be really good development for the veterans. You look at Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles and then Peyton Pierce pushing. We're seeing some of those 3 linebacker looks in a handful of drills and reps already in camp. It's impressive how quickly it's been restored to the level that you guys were so proud to establish.
Restore the roar?
Yeah, restore. If that's how you guys are viewing it, then I'll adapt that as well. But you can't ignore how impressive that group looks. And I really think that the tight end group,
very good.
That might be the best tight end group in America. And we're not talking about them a ton, and it's easy to overlook them because this is not a conversation of, this is the year of the tight end, and here comes 70 catches for Ohio State at that position. Now, Max Clare's done that at this level, but I truly don't know if his production is going to be at that same level for Ohio State because he's on a roster where it's not necessary. But Bennett Christian, Will Kazmarek, Jelani Thurman made a couple nice catches on Saturday specifically.
Jelani, I think, has had probably the best 4 days of anyone I saw. Just consistency, his willingness and ability to block and how that has impacted, increase in that has impacted the team positively. But he's had one catch every day that I wouldn't say surprised me, but it was an impressive catch, like a tough, difficult, acrobatic catch that he came down with.
Yeah, I think there was one in the red zone period on Saturday that comes to mind for me for Jelani. But that's a really good group. And, that's important and overlooked, the role that they have to play both.
Not to Keenan Bailey.
Not to Keenan Bailey. Because
he said
you may have heard this before, Bob, but on one play you may have to block a left tackle, and on the next play you may have to run a route against a safety. You have to do a lot of things to bring value.
Well, Keenan Bailey was quick to point out, he's like, against Notre Dame, he's like, all 4 of our guys played. And there was plays where all 4 of them were in the game.
They had a little 14 personnel out there last year.
Well, and it's tough to match up to, and if you have depth like that and versatility, and is Will Kazmarek, Max Clare, running routes? Probably not, but he's a lot better at that than I think people give him credit for. The same thing with Bennett Christian, where both of those guys are much more skilled receivers than I think people give him credit for. Just as the same as Jelani Thurman has gotten to be a pretty darn good blocker. And they've leaned in a lot on Max Clare to be able to do that as well because of the versatility that will ultimately give their team.
But I think you look at Jelani Thurman's situation where Ohio State brings in Max Clare out of the transfer portal. Like Jelani at that time, he could have done whatever he wanted. He could have left it. And, the choice was his. What do you want to make of your career? What do you want to do to attack this spot? Because he arrived at Ohio State with a ton of excitement and hype about what he might provide. Kevin Wilson, remember that recruitment? It's like, we haven't had one with this kind of athleticism. Like, we can feature this guy in a way. And it hasn't translated to this point. Doesn't mean that it can't, but he did not shirk from that challenge. And it wasn't even just that Max Clare was here. It's also that Will Kazmarek was returning and Bennett Christian was starting to push, and he was showing he could do the things as a blocker. And he had the long touchdown from Julian Sayin last year, the little catch and run in late time. He's shown the ability that he could help too. So the challenge was out there for Jelani Thurman, and I definitely think, Bob, he is accepted at and run with the opportunity.
Any other observations or notes? I mean, we had a full 3-pack of days, and you put them all together. I'm sorry I led you to the linebackers, and we kind of,
well,
landed
they're
on
really
the tight
good.
ends. They are. They're very good. And the thing that's going to be interesting with them is last year I think you would have noticed them being good, and that would have been nice. This year, with Matt Patricia being the defensive coordinator, trying to find where they're at on the field will be a little bit more challenging because they will be very multiple. And when you have guys that have length and athleticism and have a deep skill bucket because they've played other positions, like both starting linebackers have played other positions at Ohio State.
Yep.
With Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles playing DB and defensive line respectively. Like,
it's a pretty wild juxtaposition there, right?
And because they look about the same now, like physically on the field.
Except that Arvell's 8 feet tall.
Arvell is very tall. He's got like great length. He runs really well. He can do a lot of stuff. But you're going to see a lot of, I think, them moving around. And Texas, I would imagine, they're going to have a hard time like honing in on what exactly you feel like they're going to do because you have a new coordinator. You have a bunch of new starters and a coordinator that you look around. And if you ever try to like watch and figure out what his defense is, it's like, well, who do you have?
Yeah.
And then I'll tell you what we're going to play. And they have two guys that are very versatile, so they'll have a lot of different things they can do.
And that also includes flexibility and versatility with the defensive line. We saw C.J. Hicks getting some impressive work there on Saturday. He had one sort of bull rush where he and Ethan Onyanwa have been going at it, in
He's a big, thick dude.
couple guys.
Very girthy.
Yeah, just athletes. Dudes being dudes. And Onyanwa got the better of C.J. Hicks on one rep during this team period. I talked to both of them about it. It was like, well, I set him up with this move. He thought I was going to do this, and I instead of going speed, I went bull rush. And he put Ethan Onyanwa the second time on his backside. People have been wanting to see that from C.J. Hicks for 4 years now. And that was one snap, and we're not not overreacting.
The best probably since Lincoln. Nobody's done it better.
It's one of the best.
Hicks.
It's one of the best reps I've ever seen in my entire life.
Best rep all time.
I talked to you about this actually on Saturday, where it's like I feel like I'm maturing in my coverage where I don't overreact to every single snap.
Because you know what? Guys have good plays and bad plays.
They have good plays and bad plays. And the same thing was true for Onyanwa there. Like I don't want the point to be, oh, you should be concerned about the left tackle and Ohio State bringing him in the portal and maybe that NFL draft buzz was premature. I'm not saying that because 15 minutes beforehand in one-on-ones, Ethan Onyanwa was absolutely dominant, and he won every single one of them. And you and I had this conversation. It's like, well, would you be concerned that it doesn't translate from individual to team? It's like, well, if you can't handle the first part of it, you got no chance in the second part. You don't have to you can take both of those things and put fuller context into what's going on. The baseline blocking ability in a one-on-one situation was really encouraging. And if there's more things going on in a team period that makes it more complicated, all right, well, you still have a month to work some of that stuff out. But if you can't block somebody in one-on-one, you're probably unlikely to do that in team period.
Well, that's the thing. You can hide people in team. You can have a tight end over there with help a back. You can get a running back over. You can slide. Like one-on-ones is what it is. So now it's you and him. By definition, it's one-on-one.
Mono a mono?
A mono. So it was interesting to see that. There's, like I said, with guys, there's going to be some good. There's going to be some bad. It's good to see, though. C.J. Hicks, after watching him for about 2 years, I believe like he's a guy, get him on a track and get him going. Like sitting back, he can do it, but that's probably not what he does best. But he can still drop. He can do other things. So that's because he's a very similar body type to Arvell and Sonny. And so when you have these guys that have length, that have athleticism, you can put them on the edge, you can drop them, you can rush them, you can do a lot of things. And with that creates a lot of challenges for the offense of trying to predict who the rushers are, like what the alignment's going to look like. Are you going to use a 4-down situation? Is it going to be a bare front? Will it be like an odd front? Because you can walk those guys up and they can play edge defense. So it's going to be very intriguing to see. And I think that's one thing that'll help disguise maybe the lack of defensive tackle depth early on is you have so many really good ends that are big, like Bo Atkinson. I mean, is that your first time seeing Bo Atkinson?
Yeah. That guy, he looks country strong, Bob.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
He walked up on Thursday, and there was no pads on for that one. He got into the backfield a little bit on a run by James Peoples, and I thought that he had just it looked like a tap.
Yeah.
He just put his arm out. And James Peoples, flew like he had been blown up. He went 6 yards through the air, landed on the ground. That's a little bit of hyperbole, but it didn't look like he was trying to do anything crazy, and he wasn't trying to hurt his teammate. But he put one hand on James Peoples, and James Peoples went to the ground. And I was like, okay, this guy has a little bit different skill set. If you have, Kenyatta Jackson on one side and Bo Atkinson on the other, they don't look like they play the same position. And in some ways, you wouldn't even ask them to, right?
Yeah.
Sort of like Jack and JT.
I think how they play the position is what it is. There's different ways to go about doing it, and Bo is very different. Skill-wise than Kenyatta. But they're both big. And one of the things is, too, both those guys, I think, are big enough that you could kick them inside and you can move them around and do some stuff.
I thought about that with Atkinson if we were talking about what do you need to do at 3-tech.
Yeah.
And I've heard other people push back and they say, I think Atkinson's too big for that, and maybe he's also too important at defensive end. I don't know. I just looked at him, and I thought Well, Jayshon Cornell did that at 6'4", 6'5". Draymond Jones was not quite that tall, but similar weight and similar strength. And I've always loved what Larry's. If there's been one position that's the hallmark for Larry Johnson, to me it is not the Bosas and Chase Young, because I feel like those are generational prospects. You could do just about anything you want with them. What has been year after year after year, finding someone to play that 3-tech and different guys that you don't always think of. I wondered if Bo Atkinson could do that. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case based on the first couple days.
It's been 3 days. I mean, they move some guys around, and some of it's fit and feel and trying to figure that out. So I don't think it's a finished strategy yet for Matt Patricia. They're still probably exploring and examining some of those things. And some of that's going to come out of necessity as they start playing the offense. And if you get gashed here or they're taking advantage of this, maybe you have to start looking at, okay, is this a weakness of ours? How do we correct it? Can we correct it with personnel? Can we correct it with scheme? And try to blend those two things together.